I first learned about the acronyms AFAB and AMAB, and only a while after that I saw ACAB. And I just knew it had something to do with cops, but I had no one to explain it to me at that time. So there was a brief period of time when I thought ACAB meant assigned cop at birth. There was never any pre-established physiology of a lie in the beginning. Some people just discovered machines that can measure physiological signs of a person, and then they just made it up. Our story begins in 1920s in California, Berkeley. A couple of guys found themselves wanting and needing to reform the police because they were kind of savages. These reformers wanted to get rid of the so-called third degree, which is a very polite way to call police beating a confession out of a person. I read some stories and you can very easily imagine it as Nazi-style interrogation. And the lie detector could potentially stop that. The police would still get to feel like they're in power without necessarily resorting to their more violent means. It wasn't long before it was almost used as evidence in court. In 1920, a doctor was shot, and a year later, a young black man, James Alfonso Fry, confessed to having shot him in self-defense. Later he said he confessed because him and the detective agreed to split the reward. The police probably convinced him to confess, and he most likely did not know his rights and had no idea what awaits him because during the trial he was actually facing the death penalty. Despite there being no physical evidence linking him to the case, but he confessed. On the scene comes an aspiring psychologist, William Moulton Marston, who invented a machine that measures systolic blood pressure, and he was very eager to promote it. Later, he became a comic book writer and invented Wonder Woman. So, Mr. Marston wanted to use it in court to prove James Fry was innocent. But the judge dismissed it. I'm too old for new tech. He did not want to permit the test being performed in front of the jury, and there it was agreed that unless it's a matter of common knowledge in the scientific community, the jury will decide on guilt or innocence. The fact that the test happened still probably swayed the jury because he only got life in prison. Now, as he was serving his sentence, which was life in prison, these lie detector scientists were still super enthusiastic about their self-promotion. So they did a photo shoot of a recreation of the event when James Fry was sitting through the lie detector test. Now, I know there are worse things in life, but I find that super distasteful. After 18 years, James Fry was paroled, and he spent the rest of his life, which was 14 years, trying to clear his name. The first empirical review of the lie detector was only done in 1965. The result was, there is no lie detector, neither man nor machine. People have been deceived by a myth that a mystery box can detect the difference between truth and falsehood. And the reply from the lie detector fans was, well, actually, it's the person who does the lie detection, so you don't even really have to bother with this science nonsense. More rigorous tests of the validity of the polygraph came in 1983. The results were not surprising. It can be beaten, and there is the issue of false positives. The reply of the American Joint Security Commission back then was, in the NSA and the CIA, we love our lie detectors. Without them, we would not really be able to tell who's telling the truth and who lies.
They organized an anti-government militia, of course, and proceeded to topple the government. So, little miscommunication there.
The reform in the 1920s was obviously really effective because the cops are still in need of their lie detectors. So how does it work? They want your responses to structured, but unstandardized questions. Unstandardized, nothing to see here. There is a pre-test interview with control questions, which is supposed to make you feel anxious about possible deception. These control questions are either supposed to make you lie or make you feel very concerned. And the purpose is to get a baseline of your physiological reactions in the moments when you lie and in the moments when you tell the truth. Then, as you are asked the actual questions, your physiological reactions are compared to this baseline that you gave at the pre-test interview. Before I learned about this, I thought that all it takes to pass a lie detector test is to be calm throughout, but now I kind of appreciate people who can beat it a little more, because it's one thing to be calm, it's another to give them the baseline responses and then act accordingly. Because if you are just calm throughout the test, your results will come as inconclusive. You cannot test the effectiveness though. Duh. In order to conduct a test in the first place, you need to give people fake lies to conceal, which are not real lies. The success rate is estimated to be way above chance, but way too infrequently for how it is being used. And it is definitely beatable by people with training. National Research Council said the federal agency's overconfidence in this screening represents a danger to national security objectives. Why would they continue? Power tripping. It is supposed to create a theater of interrogation. Hey, at least they are still used for their original purpose. The only way in which it actually works is it's supposed to make the person scared that they will be discovered, so they confess. What do the cops use as lie detection methods nowadays? The one I talked about is control question test, and this one has absolutely been dismissed by any reasonable scientific scrutiny. Then there is the so-called concealed information test. About 70% of psychologists think highly of this method. It asks about information that only the potential perpetrator of the crime would know. As of 2019, only Japan used it for forensic purposes. There is also the autobiographical implicit association test, which focuses on response times, and it was developed as a reaction to the concern of the National Research Council that control question tests absolutely do not work. Some studies are positive about it, and some show that it is subject to the same shortcomings. And it is beatable by people who receive one sheet of paper with instructions on how to pass it. Latest alternatives that I was able to find that are most modern are brain scans combined with concealed information test, but only if the brain scans focus on the entire brain, because attempts at concealing information manifest in other areas of the brain. In 2021, a study with the help of artificial intelligence wanted to map the tells of lies in people, and they found very groundbreaking information. The tells differ from person to person. Who could have known? So, finding any concise physiology of a lie is a way harder task than some people would like us to believe.